Hi, welcome to Awakening Soul Truth. I'm Robbie Short. This is Alice Ledbetter, and we're both Reiki masters. I'm a yogi, she's a medium, and we're here having and hosting conversations based on the spiritual realm and the metaphysical world. And one thing that we would like to start off this video with is a little commercial or update about our online event that we're going to be doing on 11/11. We would love for everyone to join us. We're going to be doing a portal activation meditation at 11 a.m. Central Time for just $11. You can Venmo me at Robbie-Short-2. And you can direct message us on Instagram to let us know that you want to join. All we need is your email account. And we're also going to put our phone numbers and email addresses underneath this video for you can contact us that way as well.
So just look in the description. 11/11, though, is a powerful day because of the numerology. The numerology is significant. That is a real impact on your life and your reality. And a lot of people might not think that, like maybe think that astrology and numbers or sacred geometry aren't real. They are real, and your body is impacted by all of these outside influences. And internally, you can be impacted. Your emotions, your thoughts, are they aligned with love? And are they aligned with your higher consciousness?
If you look at the number 1, just look at how it looks. It's like a conduit between the heavens and the earth. It's like a direct line. Mm-hmm. And then we have 11, which is 2 of those put together, and it creates a gateway or a portal. And then you have 11/11, so it doubly, is that a word? Doubly?
It doubly activates. Activation times 2.
Yes. So on 11/11, and then we've got 2022. If you add all that up numerically, it comes to 10. 1 plus 0, 1. So it's going to be a very powerful day, and we hope that you join us.
And this activation we're talking about is the alignment between the divine and manifestation in the physical form. That's what the 11/11 symbolically represents. The manifestation of light, of a higher consciousness through your physical being.
This is also going to be a great segue into our subject matter for today, because a lot of cultures around the world say that this time of year, fall for us here in the United States, is when the veil is the thinnest. So what is the veil?
We need to talk about the veil. So the veil is actually a place that causes disillusionment in your life. It causes the extreme thinking that pain and suffering has to be our reality. And it does not.
We mentioned it in one of our videos about consciousness. We had a symbol up here called Om, and I showed you a little crescent moon in that upper right-hand corner that represents the veil. The veil in the yogic ideology represents the veil of forgetfulness, the veil of illusion. Basically, the veil is the separation between the seen and the unseen, or a boundary or a barrier that makes us feel separate from or separate than the divine.
So this barrier is actually pulls us into believing our 5 senses are the greatest source of information to telling us who we are in our truth. The veil kind of keeps you in a place of separation and believing that the external world has more validity and truth than your internal world, and your truth being located centrally in your heart. It's my belief and understanding through my work with my clients that there's been almost extreme duality in our reality. We've been really stuck in a very serious karmic cycle of positive, negative, but extreme experiences. There's been a lot of suffering for a lot of humans, and I began to really question through my work, are we really experiencing free will? My understanding for humanity is that we do have free will, that we are here to manifest our consciousness into whatever we believe to be true. However, there's been like a catch. There's been this space where it hasn't been true. There's been a space where I feel like the veil, or some people call it the dark matrix, or a place that's actually been pretty manipulated by an outside source. It's causing us to not be able to activate and stay in our heart centers. And it's a struggle. And then this energy has started to build upon itself, and we've actually institutionalized being separate from ourselves and not being able to do free will. A good example of being able to activate free will is to say, my foundation is love, and I'm really coming from a space of being centered. And it's like 24 hours later, you find yourself, throwing back a drink and believing all the senses are what's real, and the information you're bringing in as valid and telling you who you are. So it's been this polarity, this shift of one extreme to the other, and not being able to hold space in the light. And that's why I think it's been manipulation, because we are really good at holding space in the dark.
And I really think it's the yogis that were trying to give us a recipe on how to work with the veil, or how to break through the veil, so that we weren't as trapped or as imprisoned underneath the design of the veil.
Yeah.
Because the true goal of yoga, if you read the sutras, is liberation, and it's freeing ourselves up from that.
Yes. And freeing ourselves from the five senses and resorting to the internal
there's
consciousness.
There's actually a term, pratyahara, which is actually about transcending or going beyond the senses. And the idea of going beyond the senses is to break through the veil.
Mm-hmm. To go internal.
Mm-hmm.
And so
the veil you can also have the veil is, yes, external, but there's also layers and veils that are internal that we have to move through.
Yes.
We mentioned that in another video with what yogis call the koshas, and it's getting down to the layers below the body that's so dense, below the pranic layer, which is the energetic breath body, getting below the thought processes of the mind, or the rivers of thoughts that just are constantly running, dropping into the layer of wisdom and discernment, and then dropping into that layer of bliss, which touches the true self.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those represent that place where we feel that separateness. Mm-hmm. And parts of our consciousness are actually separated, so we experience that internally. We have those internal voices of duality.
Yes.
Those internal voices of, I'm doing wonderful things, I'm doing hideous things, I'm not being able to be consistent in my energy. One of the greatest things that we have potential for right now in our consciousness evolving is the moving from this place of duality and such separateness into a place of oneness, into a place of polarity existing, but not in extreme form of suffering. Mm-hmm. And we've really been in a place as a culture, all of our cultures, of really experiencing a lot of suffering, giving suffering, feeling like it's all about survival, institutionalizing separateness and not community. And we uphold, like, our politicians who actively lie to us. They actively tell us non-truths, and we actually are okay with it as a group. Now, this is not about political parties. We actually were saying earlier, we want a purple political group. We're so sick of the two-party system, the duality.
Yeah. So my last couple weeks of teaching yoga, I feel like I need to bring this up. I was bringing up two particular myths to share with my students. Last week we focused on the tusk of Ganesh. One of the tusk is missing from Ganesh. and he maintains the other one. One represents emotion, the other one represents wisdom. There are several stories, if you look back at the myths, on how he lost his tusk. But the one that represented emotion was the one of duality. And duality creates all the charged emotion that creates drama and division. And that's the one he chose to let go of so that he could maintain the wisdom. So there's a little piece of the moral of that story. And then this week I talked about the dancing Shiva. Shiva is depicted doing a cosmic dance in a ring of fire. And it represents, creation and dissolution. It represents and is symbolic of true transformation. And while he's dancing in the middle of the fire, he's standing on top of, and I'm not going to be politically correct with this because this is what the book says, a dwarf. And the dwarf has a certain name, but I can't remember the name, or I'd tell you the name. But the symbol of that is he is standing on Maya. He is standing on illusion. He is standing on ignorance. And the idea is to rise above the illusion, to rise above the ignorance, so that you have this overview of what reality truly is. And so again, it's about breaking through the veil,
and
dissolving the veil.
It's so interesting you brought up that visual of standing on top of it. I just recently saw a picture of Mother Mary. I went on a silent retreat, and there was the Divine Mother Mary standing upon what looked like the devil's head, and it had horns, and I was totally freaked out because I was like, does that mean that she's rooted in that darkness? Like, I got really, really upset by the visual that I was experiencing. And a friend of mine clarified, and she said, she's standing over it. She has the power to see truth. And she had all this light radiating from her. So when we see our truth, when we disconnect from the veil and move beyond the veil, we find peace. We find a place where the extreme duality comes to rest. We meet in the middle road. New possibilities show up. We are in a lot of people call it the Christ consciousness, or the I am.
And in Buddhism, they call it the middle way.
The middle way. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
I heard a podcast yesterday.
Yeah.
And this person was talking about the sacred geometry of a triangle. And she was actually having people meditate on the center of the triangle. And she was bringing up this concept that the Buddhists talk about, the middle way. And then she went on to talk about what we're talking about right now, duality and polarity, and how everything these days seems so black or white. And she said, don't forget, there's a big area of gray in the middle. Yes. And what if in the gray was the silver lining? And I just thought, oh, that is awesome.
That is the silver lining. We always find silver linings from going through hardship, going through something hard, being able to look back and seeing this hard thing happen, this beautiful thing evolved from it. That's that silver lining of the middle of the duality.
Yeah.
That's absolutely beautiful.
So the cosmic dance, going back to Shiva dancing in the ring of fire between creation and dissolution and standing on Maya and ignorance, it's actually called the Ananda Tandavan, which means the dance of bliss.
Oh.
And so the kind of moral concept of this is, can you maintain your bliss regardless of what's happening around us?
Externally.
Mm-hmm. Regardless if you are going through a lot of loss, regardless if you are receiving a lot of gain, can you still be blissed out?
In the place of, I would call it joy, bliss, connection internally, that actually is sustained through the practice. So we are inviting everyone to this event on 11/11 because we want to sustain the practice of light within our bodies. And because it's a day that is really wide open according to the sacred geometry. It is this portal that we can really connect with a higher consciousness.
And might I add, it's a few days after the election where,
Yeah,
as charged as everything has been, there's going to be some charged emotion in people from the results, no matter what, no matter who wins.
yeah.
So we want to create this space so that we as a collective can put into the mass consciousness this realm of peace and bliss, despite who won the election.
Yeah. That's why the date is so powerful and so important.
Yeah.
And it is to dissolve the veil. I often actually have referred to the veil as evil. And I really do. They have the same lettering. I see it as a much darker space than maybe what we've portrayed here. I think it is really important to recognize that we're getting rid of that polarity of karma. The reason why I believe the veil's been extremely dark or evil unseen is because children getting so hurt, being raped, being used by men, trafficked. And this is a very sensitive topic, but we absolutely must face it head on.
And there is no reason why the United States of America should be number one in sex trafficking, regardless if it's women or children or both.
Yeah. But that's a truth that it is.
Nauseating to realize that how did this happen?
How do we have such wealth and such what looks like safety in our culture, and yet we're actually so divided, and we have the highest sex trafficking and loose sexual energy and sex addiction. It just is creating alternative source of power I think we've used that first and second chakra as a place of power where we want to take another person's power from them. The very act of raping a child or raping another person is to take their power away. It's actually
it's all control.
It's control
and power.
And we bring this up because we want this to end. We want our consciousness to be aware that there's not a space to hurt. And this isn't the divine working. This isn't a tit for tat world. I can't look at a child and say, well, you must have done something hideous in your past life, and now you're going to be raped and hurt and maimed.
Right. You came in with bad karma. No,
that is not a thing.
That's why there's this dark energy amongst the matrix or the veil that we're enshrouded by.
It's giving you the illusion that that's a thing. That would never be a thing when polarity's balanced. We always have an opportunity to heal. We always have an opportunity to give love instead of pain. And that's our hope, is that we move into the space of saying, we want to see the truth. We want to see the truth loud and clear and vibrantly, even though it might be hard. We want to see the truth. Another aspect I think we really need to look at, place of consciousness that we're moving into, is that as we move from our five senses being our point of validity or validation for our life experience into the I am or into the heart, is loss. Loss is going to happen as we make this shift.
You've probably already experienced a lot of loss in the last couple years. And what we're trying to kind of forewarn you of, you may not be done yet. There may be more loss. Because if the veil is thinning, if the veil is losing its grip and losing its power, then think about the underlying consciousness within the veil that has also been the underlying consciousness behind the internet, behind media, behind politics, behind religion, behind education, behind a lot of the things that we're so familiar with, that is so in our everyday lives. It has to change. It has to dissolve in order for something new to come about.
Yes, it has to break down so that it's that phoenix rising. but it's also true for everything in the universe. Like,
yeah, it's the cosmic dance.
Yes, it is the cosmic dance.
It's the cosmic dance, and we're in the dance.
We are in the dance. We have very much entered into that space of this ascension process of our consciousness moving from a layer of duality into a space of polarity being balanced, taking the middle road, experiencing balance in the essence.
There's a woman had to go to Auschwitz with her family during World War II. And she was a small girl at the time. And, the concentration camps, they stripped them of their clothes. They were starving them. Masses of them were going into the gas chambers. They were being played really loud music so that they were being sleep deprived. So all of this was happening in the camp, and this poor little girl got separated from her family, was witnessing all of this around her. And what she decided to do was basically go into, I would call it a state of meditation or a state of, I don't know, maybe it was escapism, but
no.
She would close her eyes and she would listen to, or she would imagine listening to beautiful music. And she would picture herself in her dance costume and dancing. And that was her survival mechanism to get through the camp. And she actually did survive it and was able to thrive later in life. And I think she wrote a book about it. But
I'd love to know the name of that book. That's
to
beautiful.
me, I brought that example up with the Shiva, the cosmic dance, because I was like, this young girl was wise enough to escape what was her initial reality, external reality, and she went into her true reality, connecting to her heart and what made her feel good and what gave her peace
and safety,
and that helped her to survive it.
Yes, I think one of the most beautiful ways for us to raise our vibration is to say, or to heal, is to do what she did, is to go to that space of, I'm choosing the beauty.
Yeah.
And I'm going to feel it in my heart. I'd like you to take a minute and just kind of feel in your own heart or your consciousness, something you need to transcend. What polarity would you like to give up? Or duality is a better word. What duality would you like to resolve and feel peace in and come to a place of putting it to rest? And I think whenever you bring consciousness, just by saying, I'm choosing to bring peace to this, I'm choosing to get centered, I'm choosing this place of peace first, then the outer world shifts. When we connect together in mass consciousness and we use that prayer and we use that space of creating peace, it takes down the external power over us.
And her going internal to create that inner dance gave her that feeling of being free again.
Yeah.
And not being barred up. Yeah. And we have that opportunity every day. We have that opportunity every time we choose to sit in meditation, to drop into that space of peace and bliss and inner freedom.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful space. So the veil is actually a place that causes disillusionment in your life. It causes the extreme thinking that pain and suffering has to be our reality. And it does not. Pain and suffering is not a state of consciousness that I choose to continue to manifest. And our hope is that we all step out of it and start manifesting love and community and coming together. So the veil is a form of manipulation that is pulling you away intentionally from your heart center and causing you to believe in doubt or the hideousness of life. And life is not hideous. Mm-hmm. Life is beautiful, and we need to return to that.
One thing that I wanted to mention in the Bhagavad Gita, the Sri Bhagavad Gita, which is considered, some people call it the Hindu Bible, but there's a great epic story between two main characters, Arjuna and Krishna. Mm-hmm. And there's a point in the Sri Bhagavad Gita where it even says Maya has created the veil that darkens and blinds the mind of humankind. Right? So there goes, that brings in that dark piece that you've been mentioning. And in biblical terms, in 2 Corinthians, it mentions if you turn to the Lord, then you break through the veil.
So the Lord, was their way of saying there is a way. Believing in the divine, believing in your divine essence is the way that you shatter the illusion that's happening in your life. It's the way you become conscious.
But what they failed to mention was don't look for him on the outside, or her.
Right.
Or it, or whatever you want to reference it as.
It's internal. Inside.
Yeah.
How to break through it. All right, so with that, we will.
Oh man, I'm gonna sing a song. Break on through to the other side.
I love that song.
To the other side.
It's the best. Sing it again. Break on through.
I don't know all the lyrics.
I don't either, but I sing that to myself all this time.
Yeah, it's great.
So when we say break on through to the other side, it's actually breaking internally, and then this whole other reality opens up, and you create a force field around you that becomes resilient and strong and light. And it's like this whole field, and it's connected, and you walk around literally in your own light bubble. And that power, that force is solid. And that is where you want to create from. Because then you are in the place of creation. You are bringing light and love into reality.
That's how you get into the creative flow.
It is the creative flow.
Yeah.
So we'll meditate with that.
So let's sit up. Find a comfortable position to reside in. Let's take a few deep breaths together. Once you get grounded in your body through the power of the breath, keep the eyes closed, but let's pay attention to what's happening or what we're picking up from our senses so that we can move from the outside to the inside. So even though the eyes are closed, just take a moment to imagine the room that you're in, the furniture you're sitting on, the color palette around you. And then notice, as you're gazing in and up towards your mind's eye, if you see anything internally. Perhaps it may just be a few flecks of light within the darkness. Some of you may have specks of color or other images dancing in your mind. Keep your eyes focused at your mind's eye, but then shift your attention to your hearing. And notice any sounds from the environment you're in. Any weather happening on the outside. Perhaps traffic on the road next to you. Maybe any humming from electronic devices surrounding you. Or maybe just that inner hum. You might even hear the whisper of your inner voice. And noticing what you're touching. Maybe your feet are planted on the earth. Maybe you feel the clothes wrapped over your body. Maybe some air breezing across your face. Or maybe you're sensing internally your mood, your emotions, or sensations. And continuing to gaze into your mind's eye and internalizing your senses. Letting go of the external, tapping into the internal essence of yourself. And then affirm mentally within, I dissolve the veil around me as I step into my heart. And I awaken the divine wisdom and truth within. I dissolve the veil around me as I step into my heart. And I awaken divine wisdom and truth that I hold within me. I dissolve the veil around me as I step into my heart, and I awaken the divine wisdom and truth that I hold within.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you on the 11th.